From the roots of the world tree I rise. Ash on my skin, fire in my eyes. Old blood remembers the ancestors' call. Through stone and through silence I walk through it all. The veil is thinning, the shadows awake. Earth starts to tremble, the mountains will shake. Rise, rise, ancient flame! We carry the song that has no name. Through storm and starlight, we are reborn. The circle is unbroken, the veil is torn. I drink from the river that flows under time. 9 worlds are whispering inside of my mind. The wolf is howling, the raven takes flight. I become the bridge between darkness and light. The veil is thinning, the shadows awake. Earth starts to tremble, the mountains will all shake. Rise, rise, ancient flame. We carry the song that has no name. Through snow and starlight, we are reborn. The circle is unbroken, the veil is torn.
No, it says 3 and it's episode 4. I have to correct that afterwards. Greetings everyone and welcome to another RoundTable Chronicles. Tonight we have Jason a little bit late, he'll can join us later on, but I'm in very good company with Rick Osmond and Vincent Barrows. So tell me, what do you brought for this week discussion?
Greetings. Good evening. I guess if I
Go
could,
ahead, Jim.
okay, if I could jump in and wanted
Go
to
ahead, Vincent, bring it up.
just share about
Well, I'm going to do the shares that I need to do. Just give us what you have.
so Poverty Point cooking stones. These are interesting objects from Poverty Point Mound in Louisiana, and they're thought to be used as cooking stones. Like they think that the theory is that these were heated up and dropped into some kind of a liquid or food for heating away from a central fire. But as Rick and Ricardo pointed out, that such a small pottery object would not hold much heat and it wouldn't be very useful in conducting heat in open air, more or less when it was dropped directly into water. So the heat would dissipate quickly in a pot of water, or if it was touching food, it would cool down rapidly and be subjected to thermal shock, possibly fracturing, and evaporative cooling would be an issue if it was not fully submerged. The water would then evaporate quickly, changing the temperature of these small pottery balls. So the theory of these Pottery Point objects being cooking stones really should be reevaluated or looked into. It's not a really functional thing to retain heat in these tiny pieces of pottery to be able to cook food.
Well, the other thing is, if they could do clay, if they could work with pottery to make these objects, then why couldn't they just make cooking pots?
Right. Exactly. It's an interesting thing. Like they could have made a cooking pot and put that in the fire instead of making a pottery ball to put into a skin bag or something. Because the cooking in a pot would take a while, and it would be great for transferring heat to the liquid in the pot. But these would not. These would just change temperature rapidly, and they act like an insulator. It
To
would
me,
lose heat
it
rapidly.
makes no sense at all.
Yeah, and this.
Go on, Rick. I think you were saying something.
Yeah, go ahead. So yeah, I mean, they had some of these were made in the shapes of animals like totems or totem eggs. And this question came up about, well, do they relate to the Mount Pisgah relics? Since those were also made in the shapes of animals. And some of these are, though they're made of catlinite or steatite, it looks like.
Jadeite, some of them are jadeite, which is
Jadeite,
not native to Louisiana.
right. And so they're just called cooking stones, but there's no way they could have been functional as cooking stones because they would just change temperature so rapidly and lose heat. So really, it's interesting. It's a mystery. I think it should be listed at least as a mystery, and really not in the cooking stone category, but more of a totem or figurine that represents a clan symbol, something like that.
No, it's just, it seems to me so illogical that they use stones of different sizes, shapes, and forms, especially when we look at the image that you're sharing, considering that it's up to scale. Some of them are so small they wouldn't heat up a cup of tea, let alone a meal. And it makes no sense. And Rick gave me something that I didn't know, because I was imagining this putting inside some stone container or pottery or whatever, and I even was having the brains to understand that if they can make pottery, they can put the pottery on the fire. They don't need heating stones to do that, right? And they say that these are always found to the left of the fire or something like that, or next to the fires in the archaeological sites. And they were repeatedly heated, right? Is that the report say they were repeatedly heated?
Right. Yeah, that's correct. They seem to think that these were repeatedly heated.
So you could put some ointment after you heat the stones, or some kind of incense or tobacco on top of it, and it will burn it. I don't know, but to put it into food, first of all, they will change the taste of the food itself because it's a stone, it has minerals, right? It will
Every
add.
stone has its own flavor. That is
Yeah.
correct.
So I'm just very curious to understand why, in fact, they call it cooking stones. What is the evidence? They found residues of food in the stones, but then again, if they were constantly burned, what residue of food is there to be tested? So it's very confusing. There might be a reason for them to consider them cooking stones, as we see
I think
them
it's a
described.
powerful conjecture. That's all I think it is.
Yeah, it's a conjecture, like saying they didn't really know, so they just identified it that way. And it's like, I thought, well, hearsay. I mean, you hear someone say it, so it must be true. So they just kind of went along with it, and they never really evaluated it. And you're right, logically it doesn't make sense, and it wouldn't work technically. It's not big enough or large enough to conduct heat, and it's not self-producing heat. So it would just heat would rapidly dissipate, and it would just then not do anything. And the thought, I mean, I heard some people say, well, these were put into skin bags or hide bags that were filled with liquid, and they would boil the liquid in the bag. But that wouldn't work either because the heat would have dissipated. And
And not only that, as Rick was saying, or I think it was Rick, if you heat a stone until it's red hot and then put it into a cold liquid, at least the surface would be erupting, if not the stone breaking itself or crack, because you're putting something very hot into something cold.
right,
And these pieces look pristine
right, there's no sign of cracking on any of these.
and quite shiny. Okay, they could have been cleaned. I understand that. But
And like Jason says, it looks more like a decorative item or a game, possibly a gaming stone. And a lot of them are perforated, like they show here. They may have been jewelry, like something that would used as a decorative item on jewelry, like a necklace.
sure. And besides, we are looking all of these pieces together, but we don't have anything to understand the scale. So we don't know what size they are. This is what, an inch, 5 inches,
The-
half an inch for the small ones.
Well, having visited Poverty Point, I mean, I can tell you that they are about an inch to 2 inches, the Poverty Point objects, and these are very much about the same. Yeah, they fit in the palm of your hand.
which won't carry enough heat to cook
No,
anything, by the way.
nothing. Not even heat up.
Right.
But the objects count, the proportion, the scale of this phenomenon is what fascinates me the most, because the estimates are that there were millions of these things manufactured for that, 7.5 acres of habitation.
Yes, that's amazing. They found millions of these. They excavated mounds that were filled with millions of these all over the site.
And this is not a trade commodity. It's exclusive to a site.
Yeah, it's mostly at Poverty Point, but they were found in other places.
But Poverty Point is a major hub of trade, or is it not?
Correct. Yes, and you can tell that by the stone itself, because there is no stone in Louisiana except for one place called Wolf Cave Rock, and it is not as big as this kitchen.
And I remember seeing a presentation from an archaeologist at Poverty Point describing these and describing how he found millions of these with millions of also pottery bowls and pottery balls just all over the site. They were filling the mounds.
Well, what I'm seeing here, and let's, if I'm understanding correctly, most of these are found just in Poverty Point. Is that it?
All these objects were from Poverty Point. I'm
All
sure
of
of that.
them. All of them.
All the ones in this picture, yes.
But are they found elsewhere?
There are similar objects found in a lot of mounds, but almost all of those other mounds are much younger than Poverty Point or Watson's Break or any of the ones down in Louisiana.
Okay, so follow my line of thought here. Poverty Point is a huge hub of trade, right? Among other things. And I look at this image and I immediately see the four bottom left and right are of equal dimensions, more or less, and they may weigh more or less the same. Then we have the pig and the bird that also have more or less the same size and might, because of the difference of the materials, weigh more or less the same thing. And then we have the acorn and the other thing on the other side, on the top left and right, that also look more or less similar, and the two straight ones also look more or less similar. So is this some form of money?
Well,
Yeah.
perhaps.
It could
Yeah, mankind has used just about everything as currency or to represent currency. Everything from shells, cowrie shells is one example, to, of course, metals, but and possibly beads, of course, used as trade items as a known quantity or a known value for some kind of I won't say international, intersocietal trade, commodity trading.
And yet beads, the only use that my head is to trade them again, or to make necklaces or bracelets, or right? They have no other purpose, I think. Or could you smash them and make something out of them? I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, you could, but it'd be easier to just eat dirt or whatever.
No, I'm not talking about food. I mean some kind of paint, or the value, where the value comes from for me to accept shells as a form of payment. You give me shells and I give you a vase of pottery, for instance.
I don't know, put a value on the Mona Lisa, because this is art.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite possible there were some form of currency trading for trading. It's a mystery, though. It's just unknown, really, what their original use was. And I think, though, it's important that they're not just considered for cooking stones, because, like we said, it doesn't make sense to be used as cooking stones.
But look, Portugal is a small country. and you can go from place to place, and you see that certain areas have a special, have a different tradition or unique tradition of producing this or that item that has only value on that land itself. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So these are just traditions that are kept. So if you find thousands of these on Poverty Point, might be a cultural thing. I don't know.
It
Like,
is and it isn't, because they are so comparable to the objects that were found at Mount Pisgah and other places. But those two seem to be the largest collection and separated by some period of time, we think, but we don't know the age of Mount Pisgah stuff.
Right. And these Poverty Point objects, I mean, they're assumed to be archaic because a lot of people say Poverty Point was archaic and it was one of the oldest mounds in the country. But, you know, if there's actually an overlap there between this and other cultures, they may have been used around the same time.
what
And
would
for
you
the
say?
same purposes.
What would you say is the bottom center?
Yeah, it looks like an owl. I mean, or the
No, the bottom center, the big one.
this one.
Yeah,
Yeah, it looks almost that could be a bird. I don't know, wolf or bird,
a pig or an elephant? 'Cause
pig. Yeah, elephant maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say. This,
it has big ears. So that's why.
yeah, yeah. I've seen birdstone. They call them birdstones, but sometimes they have pop eyes, which are sort of similar. But it could be a pig. If this is an ear and this is the nose over here,
But
then
the tail is not a pig, not an
Yeah,
elephant. But
it's more like a deer or a rabbit. I don't know.
It's not a rabbit. The rabbit's ears would be up in the air.
Yeah,
And the deer typically would be showing antlers or something like it instead of just that.
okay,
I don't think it's a bear, but who knows?
Yeah, but would they have pigs there?
In theory, no. In theory, they wouldn't have pigs for another 3,000 years.
Okay, because in top looks like a chicken.
Yes, it does.
yeah.
But it could also be a grouse,
Sure.
we call prairie chickens.
And that would be native in the area.
Yeah.
And there are no hogs of any kind in that part of the world at that time.
Supposedly, no. But there also were not supposed to be any horses, and we're now finding out that they had horses. You can't get an archaeologist to admit it, but they had horses.
Well, they are.
All the natives say they had horses.
They are in the pictographs.
Right. They're on the winter counts.
Yeah. From the 1500s, yeah. They're from the before DeSoto got here.
Yeah. So whether that's a Eurocentric viewpoint or not, I mean, there's evidence for it. Horses be here before Columbus and before DeSoto.
Right. For 1,000 years or so.
Yeah.
And do you know if any of these are perforated?
The horses?
No, any of these pieces here are perforated.
Well, yeah, the ones that look like they have drilled holes, those are
Yeah, the bird, the top center is obvious. But I mean, for instance, these long ones, are they perforated anywhere? Because they look like pipes.
yeah, they do kind of look like pipes. Yeah, like maybe they're perforated longitudinally, and then the top could be a pipe.
Rick, the same gentleman that I told you that you were talking about for the Lost America series, that by the way it's on Patreon, please go and check it out. He was telling that his piece had a very thin hole from one point to the other. Do you remember that? It's some time ago, but
And the most typical drill point, flint drill that we know of, would not make that hole. They had to have used microchips and some kind of a holder.
microchips.
When I say microchips, I mean very small pieces of flint.
Oh, I see.
Right,
held
microbleed.
onto held onto a stick with some kind of probably pitch or something like it.
Yeah, but it has to be very precise not to break the drill. Not exactly the problem with the hole, but you'll break a lot of drills if you have to pull it with a string to make it rotate, right?
That's the theory.
You have another concept on how to create a machine with their tools to make a drill?
No, I think that is a perfectly reasonable approach. Slow, painstaking, labor intensive, but reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
So, uh, little change on the subject because I think we are at a blockade here.
Yeah.
Uh, Rick found another paper speaking about copper manufacturation, and I found it funny that first of all it was behind a paywall, and after I go through the paywall and get the paper, I see another paper coming out. At least it's the third or fourth paper coming out in this last time, speaking about the end of the Bronze Age and the beginning of the Iron Age, and we can see that these hubs that were producing the copper, like the one in Donana's Park, and in this case the last one is about South England. Uh, they all show that they were using almost scrap to produce these tiny pieces that they kept shipping all over the place, almost until up where today is Russia, almost. These pieces were sent everywhere. So small pieces of copper that already prepared, they only have to melt it into whatever they want to produce with it. Uh, with high mixers, with high recycling, which means that whatever source of copper they had before, they didn't have it anymore at this period, at this time, and they were trying to survive, uh, getting their hands on anything, even starting to use sulfide ores, because even the carbonate ones are already depleted with the technology of antler picks and stone axes. They had taken off the mines whatever they could with that technology, and they were now moving to the sulfide ores. And yet the paper still says, still is using tin and lead as the sources for the copper. And when they give us a value of the purity of the copper, the three that they tested, the lowest was 99.7 up to, and the other was 99.8, which you can't get from the most pure source of ore that you can get. Then it had to be a carbonate ore for that matter, right? So my question is, why is still academic world blind to the fact that if the threshold of purity is exceeded, it can't come from ore. It has to be with metallic copper, because there's no other chance to get that levels of purity. And mind me, getting to 99.6 from carbonate ores was kind of magic for that time. It was seldom accomplished. It's 99.3, 0.4, all right, from a good carbonate ore, but saying that 99.7 and 99.8 came from this highly mixed and composite types of copper that they were putting all the garbage they could find to create these metals and keep shipping it and selling it is just absolutely ridiculous.
I agree. But that wreck off Devon had, um, it also had silver and gold artifacts, finished artifacts, and a whole bunch of other stuff on that same boat. But my contention is that A, they wouldn't be taking copper back to the continent if it came from the continent. And there's no way that copper came from England, any part of the British Isles, because they just didn't have that kind of copper there.
Exactly.
But they did have a lot of tin, and that was, they had tin ingots, bud ingots on that boat presumably headed for the continent.
Headed for the continent off of England.
Yes, on the south coast of Devon. Yeah,
Sure.
that's not where it had to be. Because to get the 10, they came from Cornwall. They came around the southwest corner of the British Isles to get
Exactly.
to where they were.
That would be the ideal place to take the copper and then ship either bronze or copper and tin together in shipments to wherever is the buyer.
I agree.
So,
Including that one of the closest ports to that point is Cadiz.
exactly. It's Donana Park. It's right after Cadiz. It looks like a Cartesianese harbor with the circles and a huge construction that by that time was already abandoned. So, what I'm trying to ask you here is why why do you think that around 1000 BC there was no longer metallic copper coming, if it was coming, but I believe it was, coming from the Americas into the hubs of Europe?
That's a great question, and I have one. I'll go with conjecture because, yeah, I'm conjuring up this answer because, and it is a conjecture. They ran out of trees to build ships.
Okay. So we see, as you know, in the paper I made about the deforestation, critical levels were never reached, but that doesn't mean that when you get close to it, that you have the wood necessary to keep making and repairing ships.
Right. Because it would take something close to 100 big oak trees to build a ship in the form that they would use to cross an ocean.
Very well. And how many ships can we evaluate per year? For
So,
this kind of trade, the amount of copper transported, how many ships do you think would be required? A
well,
thousand? 100?
I, I don't know. We don't know what the actual trade amount was, what the cargo load was. We know that, for instance, the Phoenicia, that ship, that replica that's in wherever it is, it's in
Yeah.
Utah now, I think, it could carry about 30 tons of cargo. If it was exemplary of the ships of the earlier times, because that one is 600 BC, not 1600 BC.
Sure.
Uh, but I don't think the technology or the materials changed that much in 1,000 years, except for the availability.
Well, what I found in the literature is that the change after the Phoenicia, that is still a no kill ship, is the transition to half a kill after that, and it's mostly because in terms of sales and mass, it didn't change until almost the Portuguese, apparently, if we want to believe that, with the
Well,
triangular
except for
sails.
The Chinese and
Sure.
the Arabs were making different ships. They were doing it well too.
Yes, and much bigger. Uh, but you have, for instance, the Uluburum was half the Phoenicia, I think, more or less, and it took 11 tons of heavy materials and probably 1 ton of light materials. So we can say 15 tons, which gives us more or less the F of the Phoenicia, right? But those are the local. I consider those to be the local trade ships of the Mediterranean, and not the ships that were going out of the. For instance, those that coming from England or going to England would not be like the Uluburum ship. Would be bigger than that. Those that would cross the Strait of Gibraltar into the Atlantic would be bigger ships.
Well, we think that. But however, I have to go back to Normandy, D-Day, 1944. About two-thirds of the craft that carried troops were fishing boats, less than
Really?
30 feet long. So the channel wasn't much of a challenge. It was going through the Pillars of Heracles, through Gibraltar, out into the Atlantic. That was the treacherous part, particularly North Atlantic. But
Yeah,
if
then
we
they would take this the south going through the coast of Africa, and then they'll take the current that will sail them across the Atlantic, the Amok.
right, but that current could be pretty treacherous too, for that matter,
Sure.
depending on whether it's where it is in the La Nina El Nino cycle, for one thing.
Yeah. They will learn that quickly.
But the archaeologists, the academics, will still maintain, oh, they couldn't possibly have crossed the Atlantic. They didn't know how to navigate. And I have to go look at all those star maps that the Sumerians made 5,000 years ago. Go look at all those star maps the ancient Greeks made 3,500 years ago. Hipparchus was only 2,800 years ago,
Yeah.
2,100 for Hipparchus. But
I
still,
didn't I didn't understood what the gentleman that was talking to you was explaining about uh, that if they knew they need the calendar of the moon, and they could identify the day by seeing where the sun was born in the horizon, and that to me seemed I couldn't understand it very well, because if you are in movement, how do you know the sun is rising on a different place the next day? You see my point? Because you are constantly moving.
right, because you can't see the North Star and the sun at the same time in most cases, most days, most nights.
So I didn't understand very well what it was meant, because if I'm stationary, I know where the sun is born and I can make a complete calendar by where it's born every single day.
Right.
But if
But
I'm
if
at the
you go,
sea in movement, I don't see
yeah,
it.
yeah. But most navigation using celestial navigation doesn't rely on the sun. It relies on stars and the moon. So, and those are pretty much what you see is what you get.
Well, you can count the phases of the moon, and it will give you a very accurate uh, number of days since you've left, for
Right.
sure.
But with the celestial navigation, there's a method, what they call uh, method of lunar diameters, and it basically it takes the moon and a star or two stars preferably, and you observe the angles and the distances between the moon and those two stars. Someplace you'll have a chart or a table that will tell you, that acts as an almanac to tell you where it should be from your meridian. Because today we use, the England, we use Greenwich Mean. We didn't always. There are maps that have Cairo as the mean. There's another map that had Rome as the mean, et cetera, et cetera. But you had to have something that you called 0 degrees, and you had to have a table of how far these things should be on a specific date and time. And then, of course, everybody will say, well, they didn't have clocks. And I say, yes, they did. The sky itself is a clock. It changes the same amount every day within 1%.
Well, if you have the birth of, for instance, a constellation or whatever measured anywhere in the planet, when you sail, well, it has to be from the north or the south side of the sky, but no matter where you are, you can even be in movement, and you know if on the chart is on that degree as it appears, it gives you a position, right?
Yeah, it's a little more complicated than that, but yeah, you can find it. For instance, if you go into the Long Barrows of Ireland, which you've researched quite a bit, you might find a star chart that shows the swan in the northern sky. Do you know why that one's important in Ireland?
Why?
Because it's a clock. It's a 24-hour clock. As the Earth moves, the aspect of that constellation changes a given amount, and you can know what time it is at night.
So that
In the
means
daytime, you
that
use the sun and its shadows.
so that means the longitude problem is overcome.
Longitude is actually easy to measure, not for an astronomer. I'm sorry, not for an archaeologist. It is easy for an astronomer.
Because that's what they say, right? We could determine latitude, but we couldn't determine longitude
That's
until
what they'll tell you. Yes,
until the
and
chronometer that works at sea was
right.
invented.
So if you go look at the textbooks of navigation, they will include celestial navigation. Now, the U.S. Navy quit teaching celestial navigation for almost 15 years as soon as GPS was introduced. And then they put it back in there when they figured out that, well, let's say the Russians, as an example, could destroy our GPS constellation pretty easily. So now they teach that method again. But Bowditch, Bowditch, is the guy who wrote the textbook for celestial navigation. And in it, he tells you how to measure longitude using almost no instruments, as long as you have a good almanac.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I learned a lot about celestial navigation from William Smith and Rick when we first started talking about this on the Oopa Loopa Cafe, and I think it's amazing that to learn that they could have done this with a pendant like a plumb bob that's hung on a string, so that would be their vertical measurement. Then they used a like William Smith had the navigation tool. He said they would always be able to tell where they were at with simple tools like that. A plumb bob. They had a astrolabe. He introduced me to the term astrolabe, and what that is something that measures a known distance between 2 points in the sky, and depending on that location, they could measure how far they've gone. So they just extended it out at arm's length and then used the astrolabe to determine how far how far they traveled from where they started. And the navigation techniques seem to relate a lot to, well, if they did it during the day, they could use the sun and the position of the sun at noon, so it would cast no shadow against the plumb bob, and they could use this tool like the Ohio rock that William Smith described to tell where they were at.
Well, we must not forget about Aristarchus of Samos, that found the size of the Earth just by determining the difference in the shadow between 2 points that he knew how far were from one another. So, which
Right.
basically is the same thing, but instead of using the distance, he used an astrolabe
Use
to
the
count,
angles, yeah.
yeah, to see the
Right.
angle.
But as for copper, I know we kind of started out on copper. Well, I shared this picture here on the screen. This shows some spiral mound copper rods, and this is spiral mound. You know, the most amazing find of artifacts. Probably the most important, or one of the most important in the country, is filled with all these artifacts. And they had 7 chambers in these mounds that they excavated back in the 1930s. And in the spiral mound, it was filled with all kinds of artifacts, from shell gorgets to giant flint knives and swords, and it included these copper rods. Well, the copper rods were found. There's 266 copper plates, and there's about 28 copper rods there. This is a picture of them, and they call them fake. Well, they call them fake because they were smelted. The Smithsonian came in, they tested them, and then they said, oh, they're smelted, so therefore they must be fakes. And before that, they were like not sure, like, what are these? They found all these, and then because they were found to be smelted, they deemed them to be fake. But there was no evidence of planting them or where else they came from other than the mountains.
I would love to know what evidence they used to consider them smelted. How do you figure it's smelted? Because it's pure?
Well, I guess they used a microscope. They looked at it and they thought it looked like a wire, like I guess from the metallurgy standpoint.
Drawn, a
Drawn,
drawn
yeah,
wire.
yeah, like a drawn wire. They said something about that the copper looked like it had been drawn like a wire. And but to think about it, I mean, if they had drawn these up out of copper, it would have had to have been smelted. You know, it had been molten enough then to pull these rods up out of the copper. Well, there's evidence for technology there. And if in fact they did smelt these and pull them out of a giant copper nugget, well, and then transport them to Oklahoma to bury in this mound, well, how did they get all this patina on them, and who did it and buried them in the mound when all the other artifacts in the mound are considered authentic treasures, but these 28 copper rods are considered fakes? And so the archaeologists, literally from the Smithsonian deemed them to be fake. And you know, there's no evidence for fakery going on here, but it's just an interesting piece of technology and
Do
something.
you have any image when we can actually see one of these copper rods close up?
Yeah, I mean, well, if you can see on the screen, I'm sharing a picture of the 28, but I have some other pictures I could share as well.
It's a language barrier. I'm trying to understand what you mean by wired rod, and I don't understand the
Oh,
scale of
drawn
what I'm
wire.
watching.
It's how you make wire from a raw nugget, and they usually made from rods. And it will be a piece of machinery that grabs one end, holds the other end, and draws it out. What it's called, drawn wire.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Wire, they call them like wire. There's evidence of wire being pulled or drawn like a wire would be. And this is a photo from the Spiral Bound Copper book. Well, this one, as you can see, there's a report of the Smithsonian about these. And the report speculated that they were made like copper wire.
Can you zoom in since it's an image, just
Yeah,
for
just a
me to
second.
try and see what we're looking at?
Um, is that better? I mean, I can zoom in on the rod.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to see. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the rods, I mean, you can see there's corrosion. There's apparently corrosion on the surfaces of these. So they had been exposed to the environment or had enough time to oxidize a green patina on them that was on all the surfaces.
So
And,
and this,
sorry.
no worries. Are they big enough to make, for instance, a tent?
Sorry, what was that again?
How big are they? Could they make
They're,
a
oh,
tent?
they're
For instance?
26 to 36 centimeters long. So almost
Oh, they're just like a palm, a little more than a palm long, a palm and a half,
36 centimeters. Yeah.
a palm
36
and a
centimeters.
half.
So yeah, almost, not like a third of a meter.
So it's very much like what you call knitting, the knitting needles. They're
Well,
about
they thought they might have been used as hairpins, like something to go in in a hair piece or some kind of a hairstyling device, hairpins. One article said that they were used as hairpins, and
yeah. Well, Rick, it wouldn't be that hard if they had a thin enough piece of metal of copper hammered to it wouldn't require even, I believe, what, 400 degrees Celsius to put them in a state that they could just push them through something and make them like wire. They don't need to actually smelt them.
No, you don't have to actually melt it. You have to get it soft enough to draw it through a die.
What, 300, 400 degrees centigrade for something so thin? It doesn't require much heat.
Well, it would be, regardless of the size and shape, it would be the same temperature to get it to that ductility.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's easier with a thin thing instead of a big piece.
Yeah, but it's still the same
The same
temperature.
temperature,
It's easier
okay.
to achieve that temperature in a small space, but it's still the same temperature.
And have you found any more of things like this, Rick, in your travels, in your research?
Yeah, but in that case, in this Yes, I have. And I'll go with the Imbarra River, the Upper Imbarra River, near its source. There was a society that I don't remember the name of the site at this point in time because it's been years, but they made pottery that was etched. It had an embossed, or I should say, an etched uh, finish, decorative finish, and they used copper awls, 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 to inscribe this pottery. And of course, we know where the copper came from, and we know where the awls were found. We also know that the pottery was found all the way down on the Ohio River, made by the same person.
Since I don't know if I can say the name, you were with me at the house of someone that had at least one of these things that show us to us. Now I'm right, and it's not as wire. They are straight, but you can say that it is as wire. Not sure if it's the same thing, but extremely thin.
Yes, and so are the awls, or the scribe, or whatever you want to call them.
So, but Rick, you mentioned the temperature of 300 C. Did you mean
No,
like no?
400 would be the minimum, more or
Okay,
less.
okay, 400.
400 centigrade.
But melting point is 1084
No, but you
centigrade.
don't need to melt. Yes, that's melting.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
You just have to get the ductility to where you can draw it out. And it's a gradient too in the machines. They'll be hottest at the tip where they draw it, and then colder as you go back up to the stock.
okay.
From my research, metallic copper starts to melt at around the 800 to 900 centigrade. But for a big, I don't know, but the heat would be consistent, and they say that they use around 1100 centigrades to do that. And if it is ore, it will require at least 1400. It's a difference of 300 degrees, more or less. But
Right,
it starts to be as such between the 800 and 900 degrees. Like Otsis X, for instance, would melt at around that temperature between 800 and 900 centigrade.
right. But it all also has the additives that lowers the
Yeah,
melt
exactly.
temperature.
The arsenic and yeah, lots of it, lots of it in his
Yeah.
case. Not only on the hex, but on the man itself.
Yes, that too. So to answer your question, Vince, about other or yeah, wherever that question came from, other items, the Imbarra River pottery stuff is pretty exemplary of using copper tools to decorate pottery. But it wasn't just that. I'm pretty sure they also used it to make clothing, make holes in hides so that they could sew them together, etc. They made needles. They made a little bit of everything out of copper. Fish hooks was a real popular one too.
So it could just be that the person that was buried there was an artisan of some kind that used these tools.
Well, maybe, or it was just wealth.
And
Just
well,
what? Just what?
Wealth,
Wealth. Okay, okay.
well, yeah. One thing, I mean, this idea that it was not able to be smelted. Well, I agree. If the temperature is enough to draw it, they could have made these. But it's pretty much it's proof that they weren't planted. I mean, they had to have been there. There's no evidence for planting them. But our friend Liz Castley said that early Caddoan Indians were smart and they learned the practice of smelting from another group, and they traded with Mississippian relatives at Cahokia Mounds, whose elites specialized in making all types of tools. So there's a good possibility that it could be Caddoan, and
right?
they traded for this technology.
And since we're talking about Cato anyway, these were 7-footers. These were very large stature people. Not the giants of old, like we're talking about, but they were large stature people. So were the Tano, so were the Caribs.
Yeah, it's so the problem with the smelting is the lack of archaeological recognize I can't say it
Recognition, right?
recognition of any kind of furnaces amongst the natives.
Right. They thought that they didn't have the ability to smelt because they didn't see the technology of furnaces.
But
But if
didn't they find even furnaces for iron in some of what they call forts from either the Adina or the I don't remember the other name.
yeah, there's I mean there Rick, you're
You
on
are
mute.
muted, Rick. We can't hear you.
I don't think there's enough context to actually date the furnaces in Ohio. Um, but there were also furnaces in Oklahoma, incidentally, and a few other places. And we only know that because of the way it uh, it treated the soil around it. Um, but William, God, come on, brain, Connor documented a handful of different iron furnaces in southern Ohio near the Ohio River that and found a big chunk of iron actually in one of them. So, so yeah, they had it. They also were known to pulverize and then melt galena into lead. So I don't know why archaeologists are so resistant on this whole topic.
Well, from my understanding of what I can read for them is that they find no evidence of a single furnace in the archaeological record, which I don't think it's true because I've seen at least a few examples of strong
Well,
possibility of what they were, like Poverty Point, for instance, right?
yeah, the difference is they don't accept what they have found
Right.
or what has been found.
I thought their job was to analyze and comment on what they found and not to say if it is real or not, if it is in the
Well, if
correct
that were
place.
true, if that were true, there would be a whole bunch of archaeologists and geologists who didn't get forced out of their professions because of what they did find and publish. But they were. Virginia Steen McIntyre being my primary example, and one of my favorite people too, I might add. A whole bunch of people got screwed because they found evidence and then published it, and the evidence did not sit well with the powers that be, so they shot the messenger instead of the message.
Well, right. And like you see here, I shared on the screen. Iron Age America is now available. This is the William Connor book about the iron furnace in Ross County, Ohio. He had a picture of himself here with the furnace as he was being excavated, and he says it's 2,000 years old. How did it come to exist in Ohio? And
It is on the side, it's on the edge of a bluff that is now miles from the Ohio River, but probably was near its shore at the time. This bluff, what I don't recall the size of it, but it's a large bluff. It's a large mesa with bluffs all the way around. And William found, I believe, two there and two more in other similar terrain because they used, much like the Japanese do still today, used the natural wind in the side of this bluff to make a blast furnace.
Yeah. And
And
so,
it is not high tech, it's just high logic, which
exactly.
which is the reason an archaeologist can't grasp it, by the way.
And Vincent, this that we are seeing on the screen is also considered to be a hoax.
well, it's what William Connor had published, and
It's
he's
not considered a hoax, it's considered a misinterpretation of data.
Oh.
but it's not. He was accurate. He was completely accurate.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a really good book about it online for sale, and I think the theory that this is either a hoax or real. I mean, it's got to be looked at more objectively, not so subjective, because I mean he's got a picture of himself here sitting on it. There's nothing to indicate that he put that there or anything. So it's just got to be looked at and acknowledged. I think from a standpoint of, well, here it is. It's it's evidence, and the furnaces did exist in Ohio, and even at Cahokia Mounds, I found personally many pieces of iron in the fields. They looked like they had been rusted and sitting there for a long amount of time. And I mean, I think they had not been from farm implements that fell apart. These were like actually evidence of iron from ancient times, like Iron Age pieces.
But you have to see the implications of you saying Iron Age pieces. It's not that they had the ability to create the iron, is that they had the ability to create the iron at the same time as others were creating iron. All
Yeah.
at the same time. Do you see my point? Because
Yeah.
Iron Age in Europe, it's a place where trade was very strong. But if you put another Iron Age at the same time in the Americas, right? Then you're
Hang
talking.
hang on. The Copper Age in the Americas started 2,000 years earlier than it did in the Levant. So the Copper Age here is not the same as the Copper Age in the Old World.
Right.
Sure.
So they call it, yeah, the Copper Age, but it was actually happening earlier here than there. Iron Age is just I mean, it's kind of a misnomer that everything's from a European standpoint. These technologies were happening at different points in the world, but it may
Right.
have been that this continent knew it first and it was transferred there from here.
So
Much like many of the foods and medicines.
So if it started 2,000 years earlier, they had a lot of time for the metal to gain reconnaissance in Europe and then to become valuable, and they knew exactly where to get it.
Well, yeah,
And,
but
and some tried to say, oh, we don't need to go there, we can mine it here, right? And did it in small scale or whatever. But
Yeah, and I mean it's proof that they had the technology and they knew how to make iron or copper and smelt it or draw it, as the case may be, or even hammer it. And I mean they had metalworking ability for many thousands of years. And
well, we know that they tempered it. The beaten copper becomes hard and brittle. If you don't temper it, it becomes too brittle to use as a tool. So we know that they were able to temper it. They're not very far from melting it if they're able to temper it.
so they had to have some kind of kiln or furnace to do that, right?
Well, they had to have heat.
A simple fire wouldn't do that.
No, charcoal fire will get it hot. Will get it cherry red, but it won't get it ductile hot.
Yeah, but if it is put in the coal, it will contaminate the copper with that too, or not?
Correct. It'll contaminate it a lot.
So they don't want to do that. They don't want to put it into the coal.
Correct. But in order to temper it after say it's beaten silver does the same thing. It becomes so brittle it becomes breakable. So when you temper it, you can temper it in a number of different ways. We don't think they had oil to use as a tempering agent, but we do think that they had other means. For instance, if you had, let's say,
Honey,
pardon,
honey,
couldn't hear you.
honey.
Honey,
Yeah.
actually, that'll add carbon to it almost as bad as the charcoal will,
Oh, it is. Oh, I don't know that. Okay.
because it's basically sugar.
It's,
But but they added all kinds of things into a mix to make steel. They didn't add many things to copper until they had tin. Arsenic and tin were the two big ones. Of course, lead to lower the temperature. We know that in the entire Mississippi Valley, they had access to galena to make lead. They had access to the copper, native copper, and they had access to other materials that they could use as fluxes. On the Ohio River at Hayden Rock, you had fluorite coming up out of the ground. So there is no reason to believe that they didn't have the materials, but the archaeologists don't believe that they had the brains, the technology, etc., to actually do it. And I say, yeah, they did, and they did it long before the white guys did in Europe.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
you are even
Jason.
defending. Sorry.
Hey, Jason. I wanted to show you this. This is a device that has wire wrapping. This is copper wire wrapped around it. It's called a Moka Togan, and it has a iron blade on it. And this was from Maine. It's crosshatched on both sides, and so this artifact is a example of a native artifact made of copper and iron with a blade here. Well, the Illinois Indians had Moka Togans made of elk antler, and this is an example here. This would have had a beaver tooth on it on the end where that iron blade was on this one, but the beaver tooth was attached on here and it fell off. And this is a handle, an elk antler handle made into a Moka Togan. That's an ancient archaic artifact. And I found this in the field next to my house in Illinois. And it's been handled so much, it has a polished handle where the Indians held onto it.
So what was the purpose of that?
This was for cutting or just like a Moka Togan, they would be used for cutting or scraping. The beaver tooth on this would have been sharpened and used for woodworking possibly, or any kind of hand work tool that they would need a sharp blade from.
You mean like an oyster knife?
It could have been like an oyster knife or anything that they need to open or cut. There's a lot of.
How old is that one with the iron? How old is it?
This one is believed to be from the 1800s.
Oh, okay.
But not sure. This one is from an archaic site from around 3000 BC. And I found this, like I say, with a bunch of arrowheads in a farm field that had washed out after a flood. So, I mean, the technology was the same from archaic all the way through historic period, but they had different materials, right?
Jason, are you with us, sir?
How's it going? Sorry, gentlemen. I had to go down to Dothan with the daughters, and that's about 5 hours. Well, 4.5. If you do not stop and just go usher her into the car quickly, come right back. And so that's what I just did. So yeah, I just pulled into the house, guys. I apologize for being late, but I see you're rolling on just fine. Good to see all you guys. You doing good?
Yeah. So far, so good.
Good, man.
Going back to that tool there, Vince, specifically the very old one.
Yeah.
Another thing that it might have been useful for was digging marrow out of bones.
Yeah. There's a book on the Moka Togan, and it talks about 30 different types of uses that these could have had, from anything from woodworking to, like you said, bone marrow removal. I mean, a lot of different uses. These are very functional tools. There was one on display at the Dixon Mound Museum that was just like this, and it had the beaver tooth attached to it, and it had been found in Dixon Mound. So the technology's been there for a long time.
Since you brought up Dixon Mound, I don't want to digress a lot, but what is the name of the mound that's directly across the river from it?
I'm not sure.
Okay. You hear a lot about the Dixon Mound. You don't hear that there's another mound directly across the river from it. But that happened on a lot of the rivers. But the Illinois River had a lot of instances like that.
You're looking for it, Vincent?
Yeah, I'm searching it up here. It looks like it's a Dina culture area, and it's known as uh, also known as Williams or Williamson Mound. There's a Dixon Mound in Ohio, but I was talking about the one in Illinois. So
Yeah, I was too.
okay, so so yeah, I'm not sure what the other one next to it is, but continue to look
Well, it's
here.
on the opposite side of the river. It's not. Well, I guess it's still in Illinois, but or maybe yeah, it's still in Illinois.
Near Lewiston.
Yeah, that area.
I've got
That's
a
not
map.
important. I didn't want to digress that much. Since you brought up Dixon Mound, it is not unusual for these mound complexes to face each other across a navigable waterway like that one.
And I'm not sure if you heard the story of Dixon Mounds, how it used to have human burials on display for a long time. Then
Yep.
the NAGPRA was enacted, and they came in and basically they covered up all the burials or enclosed them, and now they're no longer on display.
I know one thing. Search engines suck at recognizing how many mounds there are. So I'm at the Dixon Mound site in Illinois, and I just enter mounds near Dixon, and it literally zooms out to show me mounds 3 states away. Can you believe that? That is so sad. Cahokia. How the hell is Cahokia the closest mound that this AI has in its head? Somebody needs to put Greg Little in touch with Bing and tell Bing to read his encyclopedia. This is terrible. Sorry, I was trying to help, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a ubiquitous problem because mounds are ubiquitous. They're everywhere.
Fucking everywhere. Yeah.
They're not just in North America either, by the way. For instance, compare Grave Creek Mound at Moundsville, West Virginia, to Alderbury Mound in England. They're almost exactly the same height, same configuration, and both of them are within sight lines of other features that serve the same purpose.
Vince, I don't want to don't go backwards, but I was watching while I was driving a little bit until my daughters were like, "Music, you idiot! What are these people talking about?" But when I saw the tools you had up front, I have a question: were those stone or clay?
The tools, you mean like the poverty
The
point?
ones that they were mistakenly calling cooking items, and
Oh.
the ones, yeah.
Yeah, some of them are pottery. I mean, they're
Some of them
called
are
poverty
clay.
point objects like clay. Others are made out of stone and catlinite, and sometimes it looks like steatite. There's quite a few different varieties there.
So I ask because I need feedback really. Here's a little question for us. When I went down this morning to the site of Mobilla and I did a little advert for Dave's interview that came out today. Thanks for coming to the chat now, Dave. Anyhow, when after it rains, you can really find this obviously because they dry out quick. But much like those smaller little artifacts you were showing, the ones with the holes in them, I find a lot of stuff like that, right? Those little tiny ones. But what I also find, dude, are various forms of clay not yet fired, and it's all how do I say? It's all divided up into multiple colors, meaning there's little pieces that are pre-made that are yellow. There's little pieces that are pre-made that are gray. How deep in the earth or in one of these mounds would something have to be like that to be washing out? So I guess let me get a full question here. Were the natives, when they're harvesting clay for making all these little items, were they storing big piles of it in the ground? You know, what could I be seeing be washed out along with all the other stuff in this area that looks like these little items that haven't been fired yet?
Yeah, I mean, there were millions of these in Poverty Point. Apparently, when they excavated the big mound, they found millions, and
Yeah.
they were just filling the mound. And this
Yeah.
picture I have on the screen, this is another catlinite tablet from Poverty Point. And I mean, this one in particular, it has that long-nosed god mask look on it and a palette type of arrangement with lightning bolt, almost lightning bolts striking down through the center from the eye. I mean, the color and contrast is amazing. But the artifacts found at Poverty Point, these Poverty Point objects, they had always been called cooking stones. But there's no way that they would retain enough heat if they were put into a liquid to even boil it. And I mean, the patterns and the animal figures were all unique, kind of like what we saw at Mount Pisgah.
Right.
So there's
Right.
good evidence there that, that these could be clan symbols or, Dodomag, something that represented their person to that village, and they could have all just been gathered together there and put in a central shrine, like an ancestor shrine, saying, hey, this is my contribution to the time capsule or shrine, each one
Yeah.
representing that person's clan.
Yeah, I don't know enough of the proper terminology, but just from walking around here, and as Rick points out, the mounds are everywhere. But I did a video, I think just 2 days ago, walking my dog, and it's by this open field where you can see some mounding, and somebody had put in a well, and this is an old well, it looked like maybe 100-year-old well. So there was, digging had happened, right? But it had been a long time. But in the earth, just looking down at your feet, you could find these like little things you were showing at the beginning, and stones that had been worked. It's constantly amazing me how they were like making a lot of these mounds, but also, as you say, filling it with these little, I call them game pieces for lack of a better word. I don't know of a game they were playing with it. It's just that's a word my buddies and I use for these little things we find everywhere, like you were displaying.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull up another image of it, because there's so many of them, and they're all really unique. There's so many different varieties, but this kind of shows what they look like, and on the screen, a lot of them look like they had taken a ball of clay and then smashed in their hand.
Yep.
Like you see over here, and they said they were associated with feasting at Poverty Point, like a feast. They would, and then they thought some of these were used in boiling food and cooking. This is the main display at Poverty Point. Some of them are in dice shape, like the square or cubes of that were looking like dice with all these engraved circles or cross hatching or chevrons around the outside edges. There's some made of chipped stone and shell and stone beads, figurines, all sorts, and it's just amazing the variety.
It is. The ingenuity with stone technology was just incredible.
Rick, were you going to give any comments to Jason's question?
No, he's got this one covered.
Well, Jason, do you have the clip that Rick sent us to show?
Let's see. You sent it to
Your email.
my email. Yeah. Let's take a look.
I think it's like 7 minutes long or something. It's not very long.
Okay.
You want to watch it all?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
And then I'll come
Okay.
back with a couple comments.
Okay.
Let me pause it. Okay, I've got us. Etymology, the hidden power. Is this what we're talking
Yep.
about? Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Screen, etymology, share. All right, let me see if I can get it any bigger for at home. No. Okay, that's as big as we go. All right, then.
Yeah,
Okay.
the audio is really important anyway.
Okay, gotcha. All right, volume up. Thanks again, everybody at the chat. Sorry I'm late, and I really appreciate you guys showing up, and I hope everybody has had a great Friday. And let's check out this presentation here.
Grimoire, that's a book of magic spells. The structure of language, grammar, was originally understood as a magical system. Then there's cursive writing. We call it cursive because it creates curses. And spelling, you're casting spells. This isn't hidden. It's right there in plain sight. They just trained you to laugh it off as coincidence. But here's where it gets disturbing. In 1946, something vanished from American schools. Not prayer, not paddling, etymology, the study of where words come from and what they actually mean. And the moment they removed it, You lost the ability to see the trap. Because when you understand what words really mean at their root, you start noticing that almost every word you use was designed to program you into accepting limitations you never agreed to. Let me prove it to you right now. There's a reason they stopped teaching etymology in 1946. Before that, every kid learned to decode words, to understand the hidden programs inside language. Then it stopped. Everywhere, all at once. They replaced it with memorization and standardized tests. Why? Because if you knew that understand literally means to stand under, to submit, you might stop saying I understand in every agreement. If you knew government breaks genes to govern, meaning control, and ment, meaning mind, you might start questioning authority differently. They gave you a corrupted vocabulary and told you words don't matter. But words are spells, and they've been casting them over you your entire life. Listen, I know how that sounds. I know you're probably thinking, okay, this is going to be some weird metaphor thing. But stay with me, because what I'm about to show you isn't a metaphor at all. It's physics, it's biology. And they've systematically hidden it from you because once you understand that your words aren't describing reality, they're creating it, you become ungovernable. Here's the truth nobody's telling you. You've been doing the work, right? Like positive thinking.
Dear Lord, Jason, what happened to you? Are you with me, Vincent?
I'm with you. I think it's lost signal from Jason.
Well, I hope you can get back to where it was,
Yeah, that was interesting.
because we didn't get to
You
the
say,
punchline.
I need more
There
money.
it is.
Oh,
Your cells receive need, scarcity, desperation, emergency mode. Every single one of those statements is a spell, and you just cast limitation into your reality without even knowing it. Now here's what they don't want you to know. The elite study etymology like their lives depend on it. They teach their children Latin, Greek, Sanskrit, Hebrew, these ancient languages that are basically frequency codes. While they're learning to program reality, they give your kids text speak and emojis. They dumb down the vocabulary. They remove etymology from schools. They tell you the biggest lie ever told. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's not protection. That's programming you to dismiss the most powerful force in your reality. Words aren't neutral. I need you to understand this. They're not just communication tools, they're technology, frequency technology. Every word you speak creates an electromagnetic signature. Problem is, nobody told you that thoughts don't create reality. Words do. Because thoughts are made of words, right? You can't think without language. And if your language is corrupted, your thoughts are corrupted, which means your reality is corrupted. It's that simple. And get this, spelling and casting spells aren't coincidence. But once you decode even 5 words, you can't unsee it. Mortgage. Mort means death, like mortal mortuary. Gage means pledge, like engage. A binding agreement. Mortgage equals death pledge. You're signing a death pledge, and they call it that right to your face. Pharmacy comes from pharmakia, sorcery, witchcraft. Government equals govern, control, plus meant mind, mind control. They're telling you exactly what they're doing, and you're agreeing because nobody taught you to read the code. So here's what changes once you understand this. Once you get that language is literal reality programming technology, you gain complete linguistic sovereignty. You stop speaking unconsciously. You stop signing invisible contracts. You stop casting limitation spells over your own life. You reclaim the creative power they've deliberately hidden from you. This isn't about positive thinking. Positive thinking is surface level. It's like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. This is about understanding that you are a frequency generator broadcasting electromagnetic signatures every second. And language is how you tune that frequency. Some people manifest easily, and listen, it's not because they're more spiritual or more blessed. They just understand that every sentence is a contract with the universe, and the universe always says yes. Why decode language when you can just memorize what they tell you it means, right? Just trust us. This word means this. Don't ask where it came from. Don't ask what the roots are. Just memorize it and move on. This was coordinated. After World War II, after they saw what propaganda could do, how language could move entire nations, how words could convince people to do unspeakable things, they systematically removed linguistic literacy from education. Edward Bernays. You got to know this name. Nephew of Sigmund Freud. Literally wrote the book on propaganda, public relations, he called it. He understood that controlling language controls populations. And his whole philosophy was this: a population that decodes language is dangerous. A population that understands etymology asks too many questions. They see through the manipulation. They recognize the spells being cast. Look at the word grammar. Where does it come from? Grimoire. That's a book of magic spells. The structure of language, grammar, was originally understood as a magical system. Then there's cursive writing. We call it
Okay, we're
cursive
done here.
because it creates curses. And spelling, you're casting
Okay, you can
spells.
stop it now.
This isn't hidden. It's right there.
Okay. So, the purpose of that is archaeologists and all scientists, or I should say archaeologists and real scientists, depend on what is written without ever questioning it. So my contention is, if we go back and we look at the words of the people who founded American archaeology, particularly one Major John Wesley Powell, then we will forever be bound to the idea that the natives were incapable of learning to write or use technology. He knew that, even though he never had a degree that he earned. He was given an honorary, but he never earned a degree. But for 150 years now, almost 160 years now, we have gone with his basic ideas that nobody ever wrote before Columbus got here. They didn't have any science or any education to speak of. They didn't have any communications or vast trade. We now know that all those things are false. That is, this circle of people knows that all that is false. We can't even understand, when I say we, it's everybody that's younger than Vince, does not understand that the first words of the symbol, not to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, have no idea what that phrase, the pursuit of happiness, actually means. But the context of its being written was that the British Navy would come into any port, conscript anybody they wanted, and take them out to sea as a sailor until they died. So the pursuit of happiness was, what do you want to do for your living? You don't have to be a sailor conscripted into the British Navy. Your pursuit, your occupation, the job you want to do is your choice. And that's all that phrase means. The Constitution does not guarantee your happiness. guarantees your right to work at whatever you want to do.
Is
Go
that?
ahead, Dick.
I mean, is that? Am I on mute? Sorry, I got this dog. I'm trying to keep it on mute. Is that all right? If it's my right to work, is that declaring that in order to exist, I have to work? Does that mean that when I'm born here against my will in a place that I did not create, must I participate in work in order to be here or allowed to be here?
No, just to be happy.
Well, no, it doesn't even mean that. It means that if you want a job,
Jacob.
I should say, if you want to eat, then work at the job you like. That's all it means.
So happiness
don't-
is the right to pursue an activity to sustain yourself and your own, basically.
Right. The meaning of the word pursuit is what
Well,
is in question.
To sustain yourself in your own, yes, but
No. It's much simpler than that.
Go ahead, Rick.
Pursuit is your occupation. Your pursuit is your occupation. In other words, if you wanted to be a shoemaker for the rest of your life or whatever you wanted to be to earn your living is your choice. It's not the government's choice.
Right, and it should be my choice also to not have to make a living, so to speak, right? I mean, Ricardo said, he put it in the terms, provide for you and yours, which is all well and good. But if I have a methodology to provide for me and mine, which includes being out away from society, being free from the grid, not needing their bills whatsoever, not needing a mortgage, not needing their credit system, I will at some point find myself up against them. If I in any way end up in arrears against the system, if I drive without a license, if I do anything that these things are necessary for this pursuit, which you're calling a job, I kind of balk at, because I don't believe, much like these natives probably would have existed, I don't believe that we owe rent, to an institution or to anything necessarily, just because we find ourselves alive in God's world. I know.
Yeah, but that's not what the phrase is saying. That's not even close.
Right. Yeah. So it's just telling me I have a right to pick my job.
Yeah, that's all
Whatever
it
it
means.
I thought the part about words are spells and they create a truth or
A reality.
a reality that's the only reality is interesting. It's like Rick was saying, they said these things like Indians didn't have any writing, so therefore it's the reality, and therefore anything else that contradicts it must not be real, and so therefore anything that shows Indian writing or otherwise something that goes against this theory cannot possibly be real, therefore it must be fake. Well, that's what we got to counteract now. I mean, this is nonsense. It's not following the scientific method.
I got something in my hand, Vincent. It's not it's not English. I don't know enough to
pottery.
know what it is, but it's native and it's on the correct date pottery, and it's burned on an edge, and it was found along with DeSoto's metal. So either the Portuguese were making pottery while they were over here and using a language not theirs, or from what I have in my fucking hand and have seen, they were doing something you and I call writing, right? And I think that's why I like Rick's point that he's always harping on, is bringing us back to they wanted to paint an incorrect image from the get-go, and we've been fighting that the whole way.
Right. And we have the scientific method. We can follow that now. And in fact, if we find something that goes and shows otherwise, therefore it needs to be adjusted. They need to adjust their words and undo their spell.
Right, but we're still riding on the coattails of John Wesley Powell's writing, because he set the standard. He described a society that couldn't do all the things we know they did, but he was in a position of power to make his suggestions stick. He was the director of the Bureau of Ethnology at the Smithsonian.
Yep. So did you guys also think it a little weird? It felt a little weird to me when was it last year? Columbus Day. You know, President made a big deal of sort of reinstituting Columbus Day, maybe putting up a few new statues, you know, sort of re-bringing about the importance of it because it seems like maybe some truth had started to seep into the mainstream. And what I find interesting in that, not to get in politics at all, but we are talking about these policies that get set in Washington and then they affect our history and the stories we get told, right? So I'm just intrigued as all of this new truth has been bumping forward. Why last year Washington decides to go, no, really, it was Columbus. You know, what are they afraid of?
Oh, that's a great question, but you don't find a Columbus Day celebrated in any other nation in the Western Hemisphere.
I mean, he didn't even land here. You know,
That's what I was going to say.
What the fuck? We might as well call it DeSoto Day or something. If we're
Well, I want to call it Explorers Day myself because that would take in everybody.
Why were they all psychopathic? That's the other thing. I don't really want to celebrate any of them. I mean, they all, you know, had quite a psychopathic or a psychopathy. That's what I was going to say. A psychopathy about them, right? Each and every one of them, and yet we celebrate them.
Yeah, it's celebrated about a man that never set foot on the continent itself.
Yeah, and he was a terrible dude. You know, that's just
but it just raises the question: why it's not the name of the actual first documented by this people to be the first to set foot there?
Why is this narrative about Columbus so important, especially when it's blatantly false?
I don't even know if he ever actually saw the coast of America.
Right.
But he made it to the Mexican coast, but he never made it to North America, which is bizarre because he had to go within about 70 miles or less of Florida to get to where he went.
Yeah, it makes no sense. I mean, I just don't, again, like I say, why does a modern president come out again and restamp and make sure, you know, that false story is just, when you say spell, right, you know, we were talking with another guest the other day about how these things, be they advertising or broadcasting, right, casting spells, it's all so simple because, and it speaks to the lowest common denominator because it's actually speaking to your subconscious, right? If you're just, even if you just hear this in the background, once it's in there, whether you consciously took it in or not. Once you hear on some show somewhere in the background, you may be having a conversation. You heard natives never had writing. Well, then now, boom, that's just at the quiz show next time when somebody asks you about natives' writings, you're going to go, no, they never had it. You know, it's really that easy. And then we end up in what I term narrative blindness, where we are truly blinded to the realities that are not only of our past, but all around us.
Well, there's also an element of the Mandela effect in there. For instance, I heard a really good one on today. I'll be home for Christmas. You can what on me? What is the word?
Trust.
You can count on me?
Count.
No, it's not. It's you can plan on me, but we always heard it as you can count on me.
Yeah.
It's the Mandela effect. But when you get to this idea of natives writing or natives having metals or any of these other things, the Mandela effect says, no, we can't break that. We can't break the claim because it's the claim. And I disagree. None of those claims are accurate.
That's the thing. And when you get down to looking at, like you and Vince have educated us all so well on, at looking at the policies that were in place in D.C. at the same time these guys are heading out to these mounds and painting these stories, you know, hiding evidence, and also, you know, that getting fired for finding evidence that proved writing and all sorts of nonsense to enforce this policy of natives didn't have writing. They're reality creators. They're in the business of.
And there you have the confirmation of the video that Rick asked us to watch, because every time they're doing that, they are creating a reality using the words. The same reason why they reenacted Columbus Day because they are reaffirming their reality.
Right.
And it's important.
We're gonna get up there to that Welsh cave and see what we can do about that reality here real soon. I had my interview come out with Dave today, and Dave is excited to get to Mentone. You guys know the area, and he's excited to go see it. So in about 2 or 3 weeks, he's gonna take his wife, and I'm gonna meet him up there. So I'm gonna work in the cave trip on that time. And as far as native didn't have writing, I mean, not to be repetitive, but take your spell all you want. I have in my hand native writing,
Okay. This time
your
wait
spell.
until I pin your screen so that we can actually see the piece.
Well, you can, I've got lots of video on this, but here, let me
Put some light on it.
Yeah, get away the evening studio.
Sharing
Rick
so maybe
can-
we can
Rick
show
can
us-
translate it and Vincent to us immediately.
Yeah, well, it's broken, so you can't, but you can
Wow.
see something that reminds you of a W there, and then once you start getting over here, it almost looks Arabic. It's quite strange, and
Wow.
figuring out which way is up or down is interesting as well. But
Yeah, it definitely looks like writing.
yeah, I've got some good clear videos. Actually, if you excuse me, once you wet it a little bit, then it.
You're a rock
Really?
licker.
Yeah, pretty much. Dude, if you only knew the times you'd find me walking down a creek and I just
Oh yeah, me too.
my pockets were too full and I'd find one that was too small, like a bead or something, and come home like a chipmunk, man. But yeah, so I'm not trying to like show off or braggart. My point is, you can't tell me they didn't have something of writing when I can hold it in my hand.
Right. And as an extension, you can't tell me that they couldn't send signals through the open air that represented those characters.
Right.
Exactly.
Right, it's communication. And I mean, I can show you examples of banner stones that have writing on them. Like the Welsh butterfly banner stones. They are symbols with meaning, and
No,
he's holding
you
it.
can't, Vincent. They had no writing. How can you show us something that they didn't have?
Yeah,
You're not
banner
listening.
stones, axes, celts, even plummets and pipes, everything. They had writing symbols on them, or written symbols that were meaningful to the people that created them. And it's amazing that, that just because they cast this spell that there was no writing, no written language among natives in this country, that this is their reality. Well, their reality needs to change because it's no longer realistic.
What they will tell you is that the natives of North America had some 1,700 different languages and dialects. And yet, each and every one of them used the same sign language.
Everyone.
And most of it survives today as American Sign Language. We pronounce it differently because we don't speak their native tongue, but the signs mean the same thing. Cat, fox, pig, bird.
Boat. The last one is boat.
This one is hurt or broken.
Oh, broken. Yeah.
Let's see what that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I find them all over on Lookout Mountain. This is kind of a messy one. A lot of them are 3 circles, sort of making like a little triangle. But it just looks like these circles on top of circles. I was looking for a better picture, but that's the only one I seem to have in this grouping. Just because we were talking about native symbology, and while these rocks I believe tie to antediluvian, this little carving or whatever that's all over so many of them seems reminiscent of native symbols I've seen elsewhere. Anyhow,
That's interesting. Yeah, it almost looks like these circles were rocked or put into a triangular shape from something that was rocking back and forth and then circling around in a triangular pattern.
And yet you can't find a center point.
no.
Interesting.
We'd have to watch videos, but it's that roadside rock one, the number 2. As soon as you walk up to it, there is a perfect within the first 10 seconds of the video. There's a perfect triangular one where it's like almost like it's like 3, 1, 2, 3 circles, and then as you said, Vince, it's like you can see faint circles in between, almost like a rotating or something was happening. Yeah.
Vincent is walking around with his dinner.
My God.
Animals are everywhere, aren't they? Yeah, my poor dog is, man, I've been gone all day and he's not used to it. I just started taking him in the car today and he's good with it. So that's going to be a big help now.
So, Jason, tell us a little bit about the show with David.
So, yeah, the interview went really, really good. I haven't checked his view count or anything. As he said, it's up to the algorithm. But we talked a lot about, he asked, he was leading, really a lot about my past at first. We talked about my time in New York City. We talked about my time in acting school. So that part of the conversation was fun. We talked about me watching 911, while I was there. I really enjoyed that. And then we looked at the antediluvian stuff. I probably spent, Ricardo, I don't know if you saw it, but maybe 20 minutes just doing some fast forwarding through stuff, and had Dave just going, shit, wow, what, fuck, where, and so he was before it was over, he was planning this trip. In other words, is what I sent him the info for the lodge there at DeSoto State Park, and I told him, I said, man, as soon as you walk out your door, you're in it, you're in where I've been. So yeah, that's our plan in a couple of weeks to get up there. I had a really great time with Dave. Dave's good at what he does, and he's building community, which is what we're all trying to do. It's what, we're on in our different ways. I went and co-hosted with him a show earlier this week with just a couple from Facebook, and they were phenomenal. Just a married couple that love this shit and that are learning that the narrative is not correct. And they're enjoying just getting out there. So they created a Facebook group to start trying to collate knowledge, like their own little Institute of Natural Philosophy. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, all in all, Ricardo, thank you. It's been a pretty busy week. I'm enjoying just getting better at presenting this stuff. That's what I was noticing. I promised Dave I'd be in the chat today, so I watched the interview. And what I'm noticing is I'm finding much better ways to start trying to convey more to people, and in shorter sentences and shorter amounts of time, because it is so much info and so much research. But yeah, shout out to Dave. I saw him here in the chat earlier, and I hope that interview does well for him. I put my energy into it and tried to talk, about myself and all this stuff in a good and concise and clear way. So I hope that goes well for him, and I hope anybody that saw it enjoyed it. I had a blast.
I don't know if Vincent and Rick watch our interview with Morgan Gomery.
Yeah, I saw.
So he showed us like the trees of ancestry of Maddock and all the family, who's the father. He shows us records of the names of where it is written. He spoke about the impact on the first journey, exactly as you told us. In fact, I used what you told us and your name several times, and it's interesting to see an account from someone that is actually from Wales, although he's in London right now, but he has this interest on that story, and he had it step by step exactly as you told us. So I find it very, very interesting.
Yeah, I invited Morgan guys to come speak with all four of us, because everything, especially you, Rick, everything that I've seen you and Lee working on, the Arthur stories, the Maddock, all of that stuff, he's right with you guys. I mean, he was telling me stuff that I'd already heard by watching your documentary. So I thought it would be a lot of fun to see. I don't know is he 30, Ricardo? I mean, he's very young.
He's
Dude.
very young. He's very young.
Yeah, he might be in his early 20s. I don't know, but very intelligent and very into this stuff. So I thought it would be fun to have him on one day just to talk all this stuff that you already know so well.
Well, I didn't find much of anything by myself. I used other people's research. The only thing that I kind of claim as my own is finding that Sigla over the entrance to that Welsh Cape. And I wouldn't have been there if it hadn't been for Lee.
And now I get to go put my hand on it. It's a strange damn world, Rick. It really is. It's an
Who we have
exciting
here?
one.
So yeah, on the screen I've got a picture of Charles Rao, and so this guy started in 1860 at the Smithsonian, and he had first of all started writing articles that said that the Missouri mastodons that were found with human remains and artifacts, axes, points, and projectile points found with mastodons in Missouri, he wrote that those were all fake, or there's not enough evidence to prove that they're real. So he based his whole career based on calling things fake in Missouri that tied humans to mastodons. And then this is the guy that the Smithsonian still clings to about the Mount Pisgah relics,
Yeah.
saying that just because he said they're fake, that must be the case.
And yet, I've seen several archaeologists of late, including Dr. Ed Barnhart, that was on Universe Unveiled very recently. Go and watch that show. He was saying something like the archaeology of the 1800s was far from accurate, and methods have evolved, and we have lots of new ways of taking interpretations of what was seen, right?
Right.
And yet you're telling me the opposite, that the Smithsonian is still defending something that came from the 1800s.
Yeah.
It's still valid today. And most of the time they don't retest it because it's all going into the basement or whatever is the place. And
Right.
it's-
Well, we decided it was a fake, so we're not going to allow you to even look at it.
Right.
Yeah. How about
Well,
that?
I think, Ricardo, I think it's like people, you know, somebody might tell a white lie and it might have been a long, long time ago, right? But if they, when it comes time to admit that lie, what people do is they get scared and they go, oh no, if I told them I lied, that means they're going to think I always lie. They won't believe anything. Oh no. And the Smithsonian, I think, is getting its hands tied so many times just like that. Because when you look at this emirate and this stuff Vincent is pulling to us, what they said and how they said it was faked was not possible. It was just not possible. That was a lie. I'm not, you know, it just was. It wasn't possible. We've learned that. So
very
now for the
open.
Smithsonian, you know, whatever, 100 years, however many, we're a long time from then, for them to come out, why can't they just come out and go, all right, listen, those dudes were drunks, it's obvious. They were crazy. It was a long time ago. It was Wild West. Sorry, they lied. This stuff is real. You know, what silly fear keeps them from doing that is, well, then we'll open the floodgates and we'll start looking into everything they've ever touched, you know, and at that point, once they admit a lie, they've got to start opening more vaults, you know, because public will demand it. It's a slippery slope
Well,
they don't want to go down, dude.
As more episodes come out of Lost America, you'll find that we visited several of those museums and asked the tough questions. The problem is the people at the museums are rarely archaeologists. They're curators and conservators. They're there to take care of this stuff. They don't know the history. They don't know what's wrong with the interpretation. And when we offer to come in and do testing on these questionable artifacts, or problematic is a more proper word, they say, okay, I got your number, I'll call you, and they never do.
Yep. I watched an episode of, I think it was the Y-Files, where he showed himself, AJ showed himself calling the Smithsonian just to record it, right? And he calls the lady, and soon enough, and, you know, he was asking about the Kincaid, I think it was, in Arizona. And she just starts going, oh, no, let me stop you right there, you know? And
Yeah.
she just starts laughing at him, going, never
The
worked,
Grand
never
Canyon
worked.
thing, yeah.
And so he goes, so you're telling me that there's nothing, okay, goodbye, sir, you know? And that's just how they play it, man.
Yeah, I know. Believe me, I know.
Well, they are very open because Vincent was just allowed to do a major experiment with the pieces there. Oh no, wait, you didn't, right? So
Yeah.
You got teased.
they said yes until they said no. So
Yeah. They start,
It's
I
yes
think
all the way up until it's no.
I think you're right that they had the time to do the experiment. They probably did the experiment themselves.
Yes,
And then they
yes.
found out that it would prove that they're
Oh
not.
fuck, they're real.
Oops.
Don't let him in here.
Yeah, it's like, don't look.
It's so easy to do that test. So considering you explain exactly what it was, and he went down to the department and spoke to the fellow, they just picked one up and said, "Okay, let's see what we come out of this."
Right.
And as oh no,
And then,
Well, if they did that, and we had an idea of what the date was, if we had even a window of a date, then we could do a FOIA and find out when they transferred it out of stacks.
Oh, there you go.
yeah,
yeah,
Well,
FOIA,
see your
Freedom of
point.
Information
of
Act.
course, look, of course they would test it, okay? And if it had come back fake, we'd have heard about it. So what can we infer?
We can infer that they don't want us around.
But the interesting thing is this week on the University of North Carolina website, they posted the papers from the excavators, and there's like 19 folders of his letters to Valentine. They posted these on the University of North Carolina website, and they actually go into great detail, and it talks about how the Smithsonian came to the site, and they assumed it was fake at the time, and then after meeting with the Valentines, they said they were satisfied that it was real in the letters. So there's a really good article, or just this excerpt here. It said the representative from Smithsonian has opened 2 mounds near Mount Pisgah. This is on April 25th, 1883. He said, "We think that these must be the plot mounds. They seem to recant to find out what they thought a country of frauds is a very good place." And so, yeah, they actually went to the mound, they excavated it, and then they say they worked well with the fresh man from the Smithsonian and let me know the mounds they found. They searched other mounds near Burnett Hill and on Miller and Burnett Hill into finding other artifacts that had washed out where they last visited Burnett. So, I mean, this was literally just published this week on the University of North Carolina's website.
and have you used it to send another email to
Not yet. I
the
haven't.
Smithsonian? Okay.
Not yet. I plan to do that. I want to send them this letter and proof that the fact that they actually say in the letter that they thought it was a good place and not a fraud. And then also there's evidence in the letters that someone by the name of Eddie had sold the Smithsonian a collection for $25 at the beginning of April. And Eddie was probably the chief of the Cherokee. I think that Eddie was the Cherokee chief, and he was working with the Valentines, and he had a collection of these artifacts and sold him the best of his collection for $25. So these artifacts that he actually sold were real, and he sold them to the Smithsonian. And I think those are the ones that are in the Smithsonian.
Wow.
And would it be normal for a chief to sell artifacts?
Well, I don't know, but that's what it says in the letter that he got this. He wanted to sell his collection to the Smithsonian.
I know
Right.
it was rough times, right? But
Yeah.
Well, but there is an issue there because in 1880, all of the Cherokee were supposed to be in Oklahoma.
Yeah, but they weren't. I guess they.
I know. The absentees never went at all.
Right. They were supposed to have been transferred out and gone to Oklahoma and part of the Trail of Tears, and some of them stayed behind, and they wrote about this too, and they actually took a picture of the chief with the Valentines. This was published in the 1949 article that the picture of the chief stood and posed with the Valentines, and this was from 1883. So there's good evidence that the chief is Eddie, and he sold the artifacts to the Smithsonian, not Burnett. And in 1886, this letter says that Burnett said he never made or sold any artifacts to the Smithsonian. So even though, Ed Emmert wrote in his letter that he bought the artifacts from Burnett, Burnett denied it. in the 1886 letter. So it's pretty interesting stuff.
So we already know that Emmert was a drunk and probably crooked.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
Enough said.
that became evident from our readings last time, I believe. That paper you pointed us towards, Vincent, where it was recounting, just all what the townsfolk and everybody had to say about the behavior. And yeah, it was heavily alcoholic, no doubt.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that we have. If I can prove that picture of the chief is Eddie, and that he's the one that sold the artifacts to the Smithsonian, that'll be a key piece of data there. And I think
Yep.
that's my next goal, is to be able to research this a little bit more in the letters, because there's literally 19 folders full of these letters, and it's amazing stuff.
But
So
go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
this photo with the Valentines, was that published in a newspaper, or how did you run it?
That was published in a newspaper in 1949 in the Hoax or Treasure Trove article.
But it was an 1880s photograph.
Yeah, it was an 1880s photograph showing the chief of the Cherokee with the Valentines posed together.
If you can find out, so if you can get a hold of that newspaper morgue, you might be able to find the original photograph.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I can find the original photograph, or and it's in the clippings. I mean, there's a very good picture of it in the newspaper article itself, but the original photograph would be great to find. And
yeah, and if it's still at the newspaper, which is probably sold, burned, whatever, but that would be ideal. Just long shot.
yeah,
I was just wondering, and I think I asked you this before, but these are new data. To whom actually those species belong? Is it the Smithsonian, or is the Smithsonian is guarding them for the natives, for the tribe that owns them? How does it work?
well, from what I can tell, the Smithsonian bought them for $25, and I think it was Emmert who went there, and I think he bought them for $25. Then he created a fake story. So I think once he supposedly bought them, he made a fake receipt to Burnett. Burnett says he never sold any to Emmert. So the receipt that he wrote or forged is not real. But there's a reference in the beginning of May of 1883 that says Eddie decided to sell his collection for $25.
Yeah, but I mean, for instance, the pieces that you were trying to test and were denied, who do they belong to?
Yeah,
Now
right.
in NAGPRA, with NAGPRA active and all of that, who do they belong to?
Yeah, with NAGPRA, I mean, that's a good question. And according to the law, they belong to the tribe. Once
Right.
NAGPRA is enacted, now they're a tribal possession. They are allowed to
Unless they're fake.
right, unless they're fake, unless they're considered to be fake. So that's why they're
Right.
saying that's why they're
That's why
clinging
they're
to this.
holding on to it. And that's why they're calling them fake. They don't want to give them up. Because
Right.
if the tribes own them, the tribes might be able to prove that they're real.
Right, exactly. So that's the out for them is if they say it's fake, then they don't have to be repossessed, even though the NAGPRA article and the NAGPRA
Okay.
claimed them. They get this free get out of jail free card for saying it's fake. It's basically like
That's
evasion.
not get out of jail free card. That's just fucking dirty pool.
Yeah,
Well,
it's evasion.
government. Actually, it's not even government. Smithsonian is not part of the U.S. government.
Right.
So yeah, who are they owned by? I mean,
Okay.
if
So
it can be proven that it's real, then the tribes, and if not, then I guess the Smithsonian's just waving this fake flag around saying, "Oh, it's fake." We
right.
can't-
So the next question is, first is who owns them, but because you answered that, then my next question is, and who has the authority to determine if they are fake or non-fake? What my question means is, does the tribe has authority to reach there and say, I'm sorry, pal, but those are not fake. They are part of our tribe, our history, our tradition. You have not the right to say that they are fake, right? This is my question. Who has the authority to say that they are fake or not?
Great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And do we know? I mean, the tribe has to determine that, or does who can determine that? I mean, I
Because
guess
NACRA overpowers every archaeologist. As long as the tribe says that it's real and it's theirs, they have to assume as such. Correct?
Yeah, that's why I read it.
So,
And that's the way that the government and all the courts read it for the Kennewick man.
exactly. So my point is, and I told you this before, and you did it, Vincent, is to, instead of trying to convince the Smithsonian to do something, you have to convince the tribe there is reasonable doubt that those artifacts are theirs. And if so, you volunteer, right? And we can involve you as, in fact, we'll talk about it after the show ends, but you have a position that allows you to do exactly that with an organization to back you up. So you volunteer with this organization to do the actual testing and see the age of the object for the tribe to be at peace to know if they are really theirs or not.
yes, exactly.
And I think it might be considered like a bit of going round, but it isn't, because the Smithsonian is doing much worse than that. We're just using the tools that they left us to use and that the law allows, exactly as they are.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. And
Because
Yeah,
if you have proof of reasonable
we're back
doubt,
to where we started, Ricardo. They don't want this narrative busted, bro, and so
yeah,
they're
but
going to use.
But according
every...
to NACRA, the tribe has the power, not the museum, whatever the museum is.
Oh, well, why don't we call the museum and ask them if they give a shit?
Yeah, well,
because
But
I think
first we
they
should-
don't.
we should first call the Cherokee Nation and ask them if they give a shit.
Which, if they have a claim, they supposedly do, right? There is a claim.
Yeah.
So now,
Well,
why?
They have
What
the basis for a claim. They just have to make the claim.
they have to
didn't
make
make
the
it
claim?
yet. They didn't make it
Okay,
yet.
okay.
Although
So-
some of the pieces, Vincent already determined that
so yeah, some of
they
them
asked for them.
yeah,
They
some of
asked
them
for
have been claimed, like the ones from University of North Carolina. They have been claimed, and they repatriated the 28 wampum belts and a lot of other artifacts.
Found with these artifacts.
Yes.
Yep.
Found with the same fake artifacts. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. It's like, what are we still fighting over, folks? I mean, you know,
It's like the
narrative-
shell game. Yeah, it's the shell game. They're taking, a third of them go to the Valentine. The other ones over here at University of North Carolina were repatriated. And then the ones over at the Smithsonian, well, they don't count because they're the Smithsonian. So
I think it's got to tell us more about how much more they're hiding, right? Because the games they're playing with this little bit of shit, you know, this comparatively, right? The fact that I'm watching them play games for 100 years plus now over the validity of this, what I'm concerned that's telling me is that they don't want me to know they lied once, because then I'm going to come in and look some more. And it's what I'll find on that looking more that they're really worried about.
yeah,
That could apply to so many different things associated with the United States government,
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
or any government for that matter. But Gents, we're at the-
I'm
Yeah,
surprised
hours
the,
plus.
the Smithsonian has passed an audit. You know, yeah, we made our 2 hours. Thank you guys for holding it down without me. The first hour, I was listening. It was great. And audience, thank you as always for following us on this adventure as we continue to put it together. Gentlemen, next week or within the next 2 weeks, we're going to try to get Morgan Gomery maybe lined up and then have us a little Welsh cave sesh and look at some videos and get yours truly to run up there for us and do some more filming.
And we might have an appearance from Lee Pennington. He couldn't come today, but let's hope he can come one of these days and join us.
Yeah, he messaged me on Facebook, said he tried last week.
We just shut up and let Rick and Lee talk, and we
Right.
just learn.
well, mostly I just let Lee talk. But
Yeah, I need to message him my phone number. I told him to find me if he has any issues trying to join us.
Because apparently he tried to join us last time, but I
That's
didn't
what he
know.
said. Yeah.
Yeah, but without a link, he cannot come in. So,
Right.
well,
So,
Jason,
yes.
finish us up.
Jason Huffman, Shaman, 7-Eleven. Come find me on YouTube, Antediluvian, Alabama. Go to Dave's Multiverse. I put it on my YouTube page. Watch that interview that came out today. You'll learn a little bit about me, and we talk a lot about evidence and Mobilla and Antediluvian and all kinds of fun stuff, and Dave's a great guy. If you, like the nut bars you see on this screen in front of you, are an independent researcher, artist, activist, or animal lover, can you believe I'm doing this with a dog pulling on me? Then please find us at the Institute of Natural Philosophy, because we want to talk to you, and we mean that, folks. If you look at the guests and the people we interact with, you'll see they're folks that found us, and you all should do the same. Guys, gentlemen, as always, I'm honored to be sitting at the table with you. It's a blast, and I can't wait until our next episode where I'll catch the whole thing.
Well,
I'll hold you
thank
to
you.
that.
I will, boss. I'll be here for it. I promise. Sorry. Man, it's little daughters, and you know how it is. When they say we're going to pick up the cousin today, you go, okay, we got to hurry, damn it. But okay.
Yeah, I know how that works with children.
Yeah.
Of any age, for that matter.
Exactly.
So,
Rick, any promotion?
Patreon, Lost America. Also, I've reopened my oopaloopacafe@gmail.com if anybody has questions.
Okay, absolutely.
And just keep watching us, guys. It's going to get really interesting before we're through.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're going all
Rick
over the
has a
place.
plan. Rick has a plan.
Rick has a plan to take over the world. I'm going to go out into the real world. We're going to turn this thing into multimedia times 5D chess, and we're going to get to the truth of some shit. Damn it.
There really is a textbook out there. Let's see, a beginner's guide to world domination.
I'm just going to let the world blow itself up, and we'll rule over what's left, Rick. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I bought a cave.
Vincent, any last notes before we finish?
Just check out the Mountaineer letter to the editor this week. They published a about 250 word letter to the editor that I wrote about the Mount Pisgah site, and it's so it's now officially in publication in the Mountaineer Journal.
You have to send me that so I can publish it in the Ferris magazine.
Okay, I will do
Okay,
that.
send me
Thank
that.
you. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you all, and a very fond farewell until next week.
True. Thanks for showing up in the chat. Love you guys. See you next week.
Thank you all.